You have done everything right. You chose more carefully this time. You paid attention to the signs. You told yourself this one was different. And then, somewhere around month 4 or month 8 or month 14, the familiar shape of it returned. The same emotional distance, the same dynamic, the same quiet devastation, just wearing a different face. And you are left with the question that haunts so many people and that almost nobody asks out loud. Not what is wrong with them. What is wrong with me? Here is the answer that research and psychology point to, and it is not what most people want to hear. The people you keep attracting are not a reflection of your bad luck or your poor judgment. They are a precise, accurate, neurologically consistent reflection of a pattern that lives inside you. One that formed before you had any say in it. One that was built in the first years of your life, in the rooms and dynamics of your earliest home, and that has been running in the background of every relationship you have ever entered, selecting, filtering, drawing toward you exactly what your nervous system recognizes as familiar. And here is the part that makes this so difficult to untangle. Your nervous system does not distinguish between familiar and good. It only knows familiar and unfamiliar, no matter how healthy, how safe, how genuinely loving, often registers as wrong. This is not a character flaw. This is neuroscience. This is psychology. And once you understand the actual mechanism, the pattern, which has felt so random, so irrational, so impossible to explain, begins to make complete sense. Let us begin at the beginning, because that is precisely where this starts. The attachment system, the neurological and emotional blueprint that governs how you seek, receive, and respond to love, is built in childhood. Psychologist John Bowlby, whose work laid the foundation for what is now one of the most extensively researched areas in relationship psychology, showed us that the bonds we form with our earliest caregivers become the template for every intimate relationship that follows. Not a rough guide, a template. The emotional language you learned in that first home, what love looks like, what it feels like, how much distance is normal, how much uncertainty is expected, what you have to do to earn it, becomes the internal standard against which every future partner is unconsciously measured. If you grew up in a home where love was consistent, warm, and reliably present, you most likely developed what researchers call a secure attachment style. You tend to move toward intimacy without excessive fear. You trust without catastrophizing. You communicate your needs without bracing for rejection. Secure people generally find secure partners because secure feels like home. But most people did not grow up in that home. They grew up in homes where love was conditional, or inconsistent, or withheld, or delivered alongside criticism or volatility. And those people carry a different map, a map that leads them reliably and repeatedly toward partners who recreate the emotional geography they grew up in, not because they want to suffer, but because that geography is the only one that feels recognizable, the only one that feels like love. Brené Brown, who has spent decades studying the intersection of vulnerability, shame, and human connection, wrote something that cuts straight to the center of this. She wrote, and I want you to really sit with this, those who feel lovable, who love, and who experience belonging simply believe they are worthy of love and belonging. Read that again. Simply believe, not achieve, not earn, not perform. The entire difference between people who find healthy love and people who keep cycling through pain is not intelligence, or effort, or self-awareness, or even desire. It is a core, deeply held, mostly unconscious belief about whether they deserve what they are looking for. And here is where this gets quietly devastating. Most people who keep attracting the wrong partners do not know they do not believe they are worthy. They are convinced they want a loving, stable, available partner. They will tell you that with complete sincerity. But underneath that conscious desire lives a deeper program, one that was written long before they had words for it, that says something different. That says love is something you earn. That says people leave. That says closeness is dangerous. That says this feeling of anxiety and uncertainty is what real attraction feels like. That last one is the most insidious of all. And it has a name. It is called intermittent reinforcement. In behavioral psychology, intermittent reinforcement describes a pattern where rewards are delivered unpredictably. Sometimes the behavior is rewarded, sometimes it is not, and the unpredictability itself creates an intensity of pursuit that consistent reward never produces. B.F. Skinner demonstrated this with pigeons in the 1950s, and what he found was that intermittent reinforcement produced more compulsive, more persistent behavior than any other schedule. The uncertain reward did not diminish the drive, it amplified it, and the brain responds the same way in human relationships. When a partner is emotionally consistent, reliably warm, reliably present, reliably kind, your nervous system settles. You feel safe. And safe, for many people who grew up in anxious or unpredictable homes, does not produce a dopamine spike. It produces a quiet calm that their nervous system does not recognize as attraction. It feels nice, but it does not feel like that. But when a partner is hot and cold, intensely present one moment, withdrawn and distant the next, your nervous system goes into overdrive. The withdrawal triggers cortisol and adrenaline. The return floods you with dopamine and oxytocin. The contrast between the terror of the coldness and the relief of the warmth creates a neurochemical intensity that is indistinguishable from what most people experience as deep connection. You are not falling in love. You are becoming addicted to the relief from the pain that person caused you. The chemistry you feel with someone who is unavailable is not chemistry. It is anxiety wearing chemistry's clothes. This is why so many people describe consistently available, emotionally present partners as lacking something. There is no spark, they say. No chemistry. What they are describing is the absence of anxiety. And their nervous system, conditioned from childhood to interpret anxiety as closeness, reads its absence as incompatibility. Until this gets named, it runs the show every time. I want to know, has this been your experience? Have you ever been with someone stable and kind and found yourself pulling away because it felt too easy? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. There's a psychological term for the broader pattern that produces all of this. Sigmund Freud called it repetition compulsion, the unconscious drive to recreate unresolved emotional experiences from the past in current relationships. Modern trauma psychology has refined and expanded this concept considerably. What researchers now understand is that the nervous system does not repeat painful patterns in order to suffer. It repeats them in an attempt, unconscious, automatic, and almost never successful, to finally get it right, to finally earn the love that was withheld, to finally win the approval that kept slipping away, to finally resolve the wound by returning to it one more time with a new person. The tragedy of this is its completeness. The person you choose to try to resolve the wound with is almost always someone who, at the neurological level, reminds you of the person who created it, not necessarily in their appearance, in their emotional texture, in how they make you feel, in the specific shape of the uncertainty they create. You are drawn to them, often intensely, immediately, overwhelmingly, because something in their emotional architecture mirrors something in your past, and because that architecture feels familiar, it registers as compatible, as right, as the one. Here is what the research tells us about how you actually stop this cycle, not slow it down. Stop it. The first and most important shift is learning to distinguish between the feeling of being attracted to someone and the feeling of being activated by them. These are different experiences that produce nearly identical sensations in the body. Your heart rate increases, your focus narrows. You find yourself thinking about them when you are trying not to. But attraction and activation have different causes. Attraction moves toward possibility. Activation moves toward a wound. Learning to tell them apart requires slowing down in the early stages of connection, which is precisely when most people accelerate, and asking an honest question: does this person make me feel seen, or do they make me feel like I have to earn being seen? The difference between those two experiences is the difference between a healthy relationship and another repetition of the same painful pattern. The second shift is what researchers and therapists call earned security, the process of deliberately updating your internal attachment model through new relational experiences. This can happen in therapy. It can happen in deep, consistent, long-term friendships. It can happen in relationships with a genuinely securely attached partner. What it requires is sustained exposure to a different kind of love, one that does not require you to perform, to shrink, to earn, or to manage, long enough and consistently enough for your nervous system to begin registering safety as desirable rather than threatening. This is not a quick process, but it is the process. There is no shortcut around it. The third shift is perhaps the hardest because it requires you to feel in real time the discomfort of choosing differently. When someone consistent shows up, someone who texts when they say they will, who is warm without being unpredictable, who does not create small hurricanes of uncertainty, and your nervous system signals that this is boring or too easy or not enough, that signal is the pattern speaking. That signal is not the truth about the relationship. It is the echo of every relationship you were conditioned to call love. The work is to stay. Not blindly, not without discernment, but to stay long enough to discover whether what you are calling boredom is actually something you have never had before, which is peace. This does not mean settling. It does not mean forcing yourself into something that is genuinely wrong for you. It means developing the capacity to tell the difference between wrong and unfamiliar, because those two things have been confused for most of your life, and that confusion is the engine of the pattern. The people who break the cycle are not the ones who find the perfect partner. They are the ones who do the work that makes a healthy partner recognizable when one arrives. They learn what their wound is. They learn what it looks like when a partner touches it. They learn to pause before the pull of the familiar becomes a decision. And they practice slowly, imperfectly, repeatedly, choosing the relationship that requires them to grow rather than the one that requires them to endure. The person you keep attracting is not your destiny. They are a message, a detailed, precise, psychologically coherent message about what lives unexamined inside you. And the moment you stop trying to fix the pattern by finding a better version of the same person and start looking instead at the internal blueprint drawing you toward them, everything begins to change. Not all at once, and not without difficulty, but it changes.